Read more. Play more. Chase life. Once more.
It's time to talk about why we should avoid using the fist or the pointed finger. And because I'm a terrible man, I'm going to show you the politician's ridiculous alternative, which is the pinch finger. Seriously, why are politicians so cheesy? And to round everything off, I'm going to introduce you to my preference, which is the splayed hand. To put it bluntly, the fist and the pointed finger are gestures that are likely to trigger negative responses in a given percentage of our audience. And speaking is very much a numbers game. Even if we have great content and excellent communication skills, we're never going to get 100% of our audience behind our message. We just got to expect differences in opinion, in personality, differences in learning, comprehension, and of course, culture. But we've got to play the numbers game to our advantage. The more people that we can reach, the better. So while we might not have control over who likes us or not, or who has the ability to comprehend what we can say, we can limit opportunities for audience members to be triggered by body language. Which brings us to the fist. In terms of simple body language, we know that it's a sign of aggression. We all know that, right? What you might know but not fully appreciate is the amount of people who can be triggered by the gesture. And when I say triggered, we're talking about uncomfortable flashbacks to physical or emotional trauma. Is everybody going to be triggered by a fist? Nope, absolutely not. But some will. In fact, if you crunch the official figures, you're looking at around 15% of the population that have been victims of some type of physical trauma in their lifetime, which for us as speakers translates to 15% of the audience that will have the potential to be triggered by body language or gestures. For those of us that are lucky enough not to be burdened by trauma, it's vital, and I'll say that again, it's vital not to underappreciate the scars that others might carry, nor should we underestimate what might cause a flashback. So, where possible, let's avoid using the fist, as clearly it's one of those obvious markers that might trigger or distract our audience. So onto the pointed finger. Physically, it's very close to the fist. In fact, it's only one digit away from being exactly the same gesture. And used incorrectly, the pointed finger can be authoritative, it can be commanding, and again, it's likely to upset certain members of our audience. And not just in those that have suffered previous or physical trauma, there's people who simply don't like being told what to do and will resent a finger being pointed at them, which is definitely me. I've always hated being told what to do. I certainly don't like figures of authority. So while a fist is a gesture that I'm not bothered by, I'm a really good example of someone who really hates it when a public speaker points their finger in my face. Politicians are well aware of the fist and the pointed finger and the negative reactions that spring from using them. In fact, politicians are actively taught to avoid using the fist. Instead of doing the finger point, they're encouraged to use the pinch as a substitute. But come on now, let's look at the pinch. It's a ridiculous piece of body language. It's contrived, and let's be honest, only a fool would think that they're not being pointed at when they see a politician using a pinch during a speech. While politicians like to use contrived and formal body language, I like to use the splayed hand as an alternative to the pointed finger. The splayed hand is open, it's casual, and it's inclusive. So when I point towards the audience, this is a gesture that I like to use. It's non-threatening, it's non-commanding, and without one finger pointing in a specific direction, it means that more of the audience will feel included in the motion. And for you, my new speakers, I suggest that you try the pointed finger, the pinch, and then the splayed hand, and consider which of them feels more natural and, most importantly, which causes a better reaction among your audience. Before I dash, are there any options for using a fist? Of course there are. To instill passion or determination, I like to pound a thumb-to-ceiling fist to the palm of my hand. With the knuckles twisted away from the audience, there's no mistaking it for an aggressive gesture. So let me give you an example. I just knew that if I wanted to make a change, then this was a path that I was going to have to take. Passionate, to the point, and although it's loud, it's non-threatening. And what about the pointed finger? Do I ever use it? Sure. I use it all the time. I use it to point out direction, either off stage or over the audience's head. What I won't do is point my finger directly at the crowd or at a specific member. The only instance where I do point directly at an audience member is after my main talk and during the Q&A session, where I want to single out someone from a sea of raised hands to specifically say, yes, you. It's your question that I want to hear. Do you have to stick to these rules? No, of course not. Rules are for suckers. Once you know the ramifications for these gestures, it's up to you to decide how and where to use them, and more importantly, what works well with your personality. Body language is never intended to be read one gesture at a time. Rather, it's a matter of looking at the body as a whole. A speaker making a fist with a big cheerful grin is going to paint a very different image from that of a fist combined with an angry and impassive face. As ever, experiment with your gestures and body language and allow it to evolve with your style over time. As ever, I hope this small insight helps, and with that, I'm out of here.
Public speaking can be daunting. Make it easier with the Public Speaking Bible, a survival guide for standing on stage. This gem of a book contains a whopping 300 years of accumulated tips and knowledge from Marcus and other expert speakers. Insights include pricing your speech, projecting your voice, body language, crowd control, memorizing a speech, overcoming stage fright, and more. Whatever your profession, if you need your voice to further your career, this book deserves a place in your library.